Take 3, dear oh dear. So, hello and welcome to episode 9 of Kingfisher Knits. My name is Madeline and I'm talking to you from my home in Zurich, where I live with my husband and young children. This is a knitting podcast, if you didn't get that from the knit word in the title. And I just want to say a huge welcome back to all returning viewers. And if this is the first time that you've discovered me or are checking me out, thank you very much for taking the time to watch my podcast. I have a variety of things to show today, and I feel like it's not going to be a very long podcast, but somehow when one says that, one starts rambling on. So I will try and keep everything clear, and I think we should just get started. Well, you see, I didn't say any admin. So, very quickly say that in the description box below, I will put all the links of where you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram and my website and the like. And if you are interested in show notes for this episode, those are posted each time I podcast. I post those in the Kingfisher Knits group on Ravelry. And a link for that will also be down below. Okay. So I feel a bit funny this week. It is my birthday week, which has been great. And if some of you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen Operation Birthday Cake, because I make myself my birthday cake every year and I try and make something. It's a few years now that I always make something I never made before. So you can check out what I made this year on my Instagram feed if you're interested. So I'm going to start off and go straight into whips, as I have no FOs. Which isn't surprising if you've been watching recently. I started a few design projects recently, which I'm not going to show while they're in progress, and the other things that I had on the needles are sort of slightly more long-term projects, but I feel like I've made a decent amount of progress, and I do have a new cast on, so I feel like it's only right to start with the new cast on. And so I was approached by Mina Phillip of the Knitting Expat podcast. I'm sure you all watch her, so I don't think any more instruction is needed. I have test knit for her in the past, and she asked me if I would be available to test knit one of her latest patterns, which she has posted quite a lot about on her Instagram, and she also talked about it in her podcast episodes recently. So currently the working title is the Mix and Match Baby Sweater, and it's available in quite a few sizes. So if I remember correctly, I'm doing the smallest size, which is 3 to 6 months. And she is included sizes, I think, up to around 4 or perhaps even 4, 6, 8 years. I haven't got the print out pattern in front of me right now, so I'm sorry that I can't confirm that right now, but it's a lot of sizes. And it's called Mix and Match because she's providing a ton of options. So there is both an option for a stockinette fabric and a textured stitch. I'm doing the textured stitch. There are options for if you want it raised at the back, if you want it dipped at the hem, and short and longer sleeves. So there's tons of information in there. And the yarn that I'm knitting it out of, so the other option is that you can do it in DK or worsted weight. So I'm actually knitting it out of a yarn which was labelled as an Aran weight yarn, but the sort of put up, so the number of meters per 100 grams is much more like that of a worsted weight. So I decided to give it a go, and I could get gauge, so I went with that. So this is the yarn that I'm using, which is this beautiful, thoroughly autumnal. It doesn't feel autumnal here at all today. It's very summery today, but it's a beautiful autumnal yarn. This yarn, sadly, you can't get this yarn. This is the Helena base from Posh Yarn. Posh Yarn is a independent yarn dyeing company based in Wales in the UK. They do updates every week, I believe always on a Sunday. Their updates are fairly small and they do not repeat any of their colourways. That doesn't mean you don't see things which are similar, but they don't do repeatables. They just dye what they feel like each time. And they have a huge number of bases. This is a 100% merino base. It was called Helena. I believe that this base was discontinued. Probably they have a similar one now, but perhaps just this particular one was discontinued. It's quite a high twist, as you can see there, and it's a really, really beautiful yarn. And this particular one is obviously all these beautiful autumnal shades. It was called Gillie or Gillie, Gillie, And this was a huge bargain for me, so I picked up 11 skeins of this on eBay. So I think someone had bought the entire dye lot that they had done when they dyed it. I bought all 11 skeins, and I bought it on eBay when someone was destashing, and I paid £25 for 11 skeins. This is the first time I'm using it, so first skein to be used, and it's knitting up beautifully. So I'm doing this, I don't remember right now, I think these are 4mm needles. They certainly look like 4mm needles. And I have already, so this is top down. So I've knit the little, the neck there, which I chose the option with the slightly raised neck at the back. And then I separated for the sleeves and started on the body. So I think I've already done more than an inch, almost 2 inches of the body. And this is only going to be, I think, about 4.5 inches before I start the ribbing. So, and I'm probably going to do a short sleeve version, and this is going to be a little top for a new baby in the sort of, I call them extended family. They're really, really good family friends that we've had ever since me and my brother were babies. So they feel like family, even if they're technically not. And one of them has had a baby very recently. So this is the 3 to 6 month size. The colour is showing up more contrasted, much more contrasted on the screen. Like if you look at it in person, it doesn't actually look like there's almost any pooling. Here is really picking up areas where you do have a little bit more perhaps going on. But it just looks so beautiful, and this lovely little textured stitch is allowing the beautiful colours to shine out. So it's going very smoothly. And I'm really enjoying this. I think this will be finished very soon. And so I can also send off this gift. So the baby's just been born, and this is the 3 to 6 month size. So it'll be perfect for autumn, winter for the baby. Oh yeah, and I actually have knit the whole thing on this on the 16-inch circular. It was absolutely fine, obviously, for all the raglan increases. Now that I've decreased the body, probably in this size, I mean, it is workable. It's just workable on 16-inch circular. There is a bit of rearrangement involved, but I think for larger sizes, obviously, that would be fine. And it's doable here. I could have switched to Magic Loop, but I just decided, given that it's only 4 inches to knit, or 4 odd inches to knit on this body like that it would be worth just keeping on going. So that is project number 1 and the brand new project. And I believe, so the deadline for the test knit is mid-September, and normally Mina releases almost immediately after the test finishes. So I'm almost certain that this will be released mid-September, provided, I guess, that testing and everything goes smoothly. Okay, so I wanted to quickly show you another garment progress. So I showed you last week that I had put a big dent in my, well, it felt like a big dent for me. I know some people knit garments incredibly fast, but I don't. And I'd made a pretty big dent in my not so faded sweater. This is, I'm following the So Faded sweater pattern by Andrea Mowry, Drea Renee Knits. You're all very familiar with this, both from me and from other people, and I'm knitting it all in one colour from the Plucky Knitter. This is a non-superwash merino cashmere base, and here I have my little chocolate eclair, fresh cream chocolate eclair, absolutely one of my favourite things in the world. There, Progress Keeper from Sucre Sucre Miniatures, and so this is my progress from here to here since I last spoke to you on the podcast. So this has just been basically when I'm just in the evening sitting in front of the TV and just go round and around for a few rounds. So I think I measured it, and I think I only have another 2.5, 3 inches before starting the rib. So that's very exciting. I'm not onto my third skein yet, so I'm quite hopeful still that I have, I'm going to have enough to do, if not full length sleeves, then at least 3/4 length sleeves, which is my preferred length. I don't particularly like sleeves that finish just above the elbow, not for like not for a wool sweater. And I'm feeling confident right now that I'm going to have enough to do a decent length of sleeve. And yeah, if you want more details on this, you can go back and look at other episodes. Last episode I talked a little bit more about how yarn management and the like, or otherwise when I finish it, I'll probably give a full rundown of everything. So I do actually need to at some point soon skein up my third skein of this yarn, so that I can will have it ready when I need to, because probably what I'll do is just keep knitting until I'm down to the point that I need the new skein, and it will not be skeined up, and it will be the wrong time of day to pull out everything. I try to be organised. I can be very organised with some things, but there's only so much one can do. So I think the final WIP that I'm going to show you, see, now I'm doubting myself. No. The final WIP that I'm going to show you today is my meandering shawl. It's not finished, not even close, but I do feel like I've done some good progress on it now since I last showed it to you, which was before I went away. And I wanted to show it again. So this is a beautiful 2-colour brioche shawl by Stephen West. I have it from the Loop 10 book, which was a pattern book to celebrate 10 years of Loop of London, but it is now available for purchase and download on Ravelry. We know that the yarns that I'm using show up way too contrasted, unfortunately, when I show the shawl, but this is a pretty good representation of what the yarn, the darker yarn looks like. It's just not quite, this sort of tends to pick up more contrast between the colours than you see by the naked eye, but those are pretty much the colours that are in it. And this is the other colour that I'm using, the lighter colour. This one is called Nightlife and this is called Crackle. These are both hedgehog fibre skinny singles, but these were club colourways, so they are not available. You can try and hunt for them on DStash if you really want them. I do think that they're absolutely beautiful. They're my two most favourite I have ever had from hedgehog fibres. So this is the sort of dark side and the right side, because that's the colour that I chose to be what's called the right side, and this is the light side or the wrong side. It's a bit bunched up, of course, on this cable, or this is a 100cm cable. And after I last showed this to you, I was back up here, so I have done quite a bit of progress. I do now have over 200 stitches on the needles. So at some point what tends to happen with me is I get into a rhythm and I sit down, and for a few days in a row I'll knit mostly on this and probably finish it off. But it is a beautiful project to work on. It's so beautiful. Every stitch is a different, it seems like every stitch is a different colour, yet they still have a good contrast, so you can see quite nicely. I haven't made too many mistakes, and none of the mistakes have been unrepairable. They both sound correct to me. Is that bad? Oh dear. Anyway, moving on. I have enjoyed the process, therefore, because I haven't had any major dramas. I really enjoy brioche. I've done quite a few projects involving elements of brioche and a couple of designs involving elements of brioche. And I'm giving a class on the basics of brioche. I'm here in Zurich to a lovely small knitting and stitching retreat that we are having at the end of September. So I'm very much looking forward to that. It would be nice to finish this off to show them, but even if it's not finished, I would still, of course, bring it along and show people, some sort of newbie brioche knitters, what they could produce. So that is all of the WIPs that I think I'm going to share for this week. I could share or talk a little bit about some of the designs that I'm doing, but given that I'm not at a stage where I want to, it really makes sense, let's say, to share what I'm doing. Instead of filling up time with that, I would like to show you some acquisitions. So this has been my birthday week, although none of these acquisitions were made recently at all. One was a gift that I received on my birthday, which is lovely, and the others are things which I purchased a little while ago, but that arrived with my parents, who came to visit me last week, so that was really nice. So, because my parents obviously live in the UK, where I am originally from. Didn't say that. I kind of feel that's obvious that I'm British, but in case you couldn't realise that, oh sorry, just wobbled the table, I am British. Okay, so my parents came along and they had 3 little packages. The first one I'm going to show you is something I've been looking to buy yarn from the Wool Barn for a long time, and I'm never quite set up with all of the updates and what have you, but knowing that my parents were coming, I had a little while ago just popped on the Wool Barn, and in the end not ended up buying any of her beautiful colourways. Perhaps, I think I was again late to the game, but something caught my eye and I had to have it. So this is from Myer at the Wool Barn. It is the most beautiful soft grey. And this is something I didn't even know one could get, and this is her Yak Singles base. This is the natural grey, so this is undyed, as far as I understand. This is how it comes to her. Then she does have colours. She does dye this, and there are colours, and you can tell that they come from a greyish base, as all Yak yarn will be. You don't get white Yak yarn. So this is a 4-ply fingering weight yarn. It is 65% superwash merino, 20% silk, and 15% Yak, and it's a single ply. And the other wonderful thing is it's 120 grams for 480 meters. And I just think it's absolutely divinely beautiful. It's, of course, the softest thing one could ever possibly imagine. So I'm very, very much looking forward to doing something with this. And I think I'm going to pair it up with one of my favourite single skeins that I have of single ply merino yarn and make a beautiful shawl design using this. But so far, it's strange because I used to consider myself as not a grey person, but also just knowing that that's the natural colour of this yarn, I just find it absolutely irresistible. And as I was getting this from the Wool Barn, she also stocks the lovely small sort of travel size wool wash from Eucalan. So I have never used Eucalan before, actually. I think I might have had a sachet of it once, but I have a little bottle of Soak in the unscented flavour, smell. Well, it's unscented, so it has no flavour or smell. I haven't tasted it. I don't know if it has a flavour. Dear, oh dear, Madeline. Okay, I picked up 2 bottles of the Eucalan, and one of them is grapefruit here, which is absolutely divine, and the other one is called Rapture, and I think was a special what's the word, collaboration that they had with someone who perhaps designs fragrances or what have you, and that it's also very nice. My favourite is definitely this grapefruit of these 2 that I've just got, but I do like this. It's jasmine, and I love jasmine. I'm just an absolute sucker for grapefruit and all things citrusy. So that's very useful because I am getting to the end of my little bottle of Soak that I have. That was package number 1. Package number 2 was something that I picked up from the lovely Tracy of Nora George. This happened just when I was chatting with her on Instagram one time, and I said, totally missed that you had such beautiful mini skeins coming up in your update. And so she had very kindly agreed to set one aside from me because she knew that I was a bit busy and wouldn't be able to make the update. So that's very, very, very kind of her. And so this was her Midsummer Night's Dream mini set that she did in June. Yes, it would make sense that it was in June for Midsummer, wouldn't it? So these are all inspired by characters. See, I haven't taken them out the packet. I think you can see them quite nicely there. So these are Helena, Lysander, Puck, Hermia, and the fairies. And she also did an extra little mini skein separate, and this is Titania. So I have a real soft spot for Midsummer's Night Dream. I feel like everybody does, if you're British, and perhaps even if you're not. We certainly read it at school, and we did the classic. We did quite an impromptu, improvised performance of it in the gardens at my school, my secondary school, when I guess I was around 14 or 15. I hate to act. I hate to be in the spotlight. So even all the acting things we did, I always used to be involved. I either did a character who never had to say anything, or perhaps a narrator, so you don't really have to act, or I did front of house a lot as I got older at school. When we used to do all kinds of productions, I was often on front of house. But I do remember us reading through Midsummer's Night Dream out in the summer at school, and my brother also once performed in an outdoor performance of this, which happened next to some woods in our village in England, and it was beautiful. And he was Demetrius, who is not sadly represented here, which I was a little bit sad about, but that's nothing. It's not Tracy's fault. That's just me. Anyway, so I was very happy to get that, and I'm not really a purchaser of minis, but I do love all of Tracy's colours, and it's just divine to have get whole bunch all together in such a shape, in such a form, sorry. So I'm going to put that over there so I stop crackling and wrinkling it. Otherwise I'm just going to keep touching it. Okay, so package number 3 was from the lovely Suffolk Socks. I feel like you all must know about the website Suffolk Socks. So it's an online yarn store. It is run by Julie. She is based in Suffolk, but she is originally from further up north. As you will know if you watch her podcast, which is called Way Let's Knit. I only discovered it just after I ordered from her, and it's really, really lovely. She's really, really lovely, and I think it's well worth checking out. So do go and look that one up on YouTube. So she sells commercial sock yarn, and also I don't remember now if she stocks some other hand-dyed sock yarns. She might, but she has also recently just started her own line of hand-dyed yarns, which is called the Yarn Tart. Anyway, so what I went on her website for was, as a part of her recently started line of yarns, the Yarn Tart, she also had got some project bags. So these are not ones that she's made herself, but ones that she's got printed up. And she was posting them, I think, on Instagram. I already followed her on Instagram, so I knew that the shop existed. I just never ordered from her. And I couldn't resist. And she had them on a wonderful introductory price. So I decided to pick up a few. Probably keep one for myself, and other twos might go together for gifts for future cows, because there will be some cows coming up in the relatively near future, both for some new designs being released and a couple of ideas that I have. Which will hopefully get started up in the autumn. Anyway, so I picked up 3 of these project bags. These are lovely. So they're just sort of this, what would you call that? Kind of like a canvas, light canvas fabric. They're not lined. They have a nice chunky zip. And they're a decent size. They are definitely big enough for socks. Probably particularly good for 2 at a time socks, because they would have space to have your 2 little cakes down there. And you could potentially fit 2 skeins in there, but probably just. So the first one I picked up was this one. I'm Yarn Tart and proud of it, from the Yarn Tart. And I picked up Honk If You Knit last night. I do think that's a wonderful one. And the one which is definitely for me, and is the reason I went over in the first place, is this one. Yarn Tarts can have their cake and knit it. Just think it's genius. So, I was really happy to get that, but when you're ordering something from a yarn shop and you're just ordering bags, she had a sale section in her shop, so I decided to have a little look and see if there was something that could, pad out the package a little bit. And then I was like, oh, of course I had to buy something, because I have never, ever had any opal sock yarn. I hear people go on about how wonderful it is. I've knit with the Regia yarn, the Regia design yarn, and I like that. And I heard some people say that they think opal's even nicer. Of course, each their own, but I certainly want to try it out. And especially Kay of the Bakery Bears, well, Kay and Dan, always say that it's just absolutely their favourite commercial sock yarn. Almost to the point that despite the fact that it's a commercial yarn, with a lower price point, she sometimes can't even bear to knit with it because she just wants to keep it. Anyway, I picked up 2 100-gram balls of opal sock yarn, which were in the sale. So the first one is this beautiful one here, this beautiful rainbow loveliness, which should knit up like that. So this is a 4-ply. Usual 75-25 merino, not merino, of course, sorry, wool nylon. I'm just trying to see if the colourway has a name. Apparently it's called Kim. So it's 7951. So I think that's going to be really, really super fun. And the other one that I picked up, I'm trying to remember now if it was a heavier weight yarn. Here it doesn't say, no, it's still a 4-ply by the looks of it, although it feels chunkier, but maybe that's just one of those things that one invents. So this is part of their Moments of Truth range. So as far as I can tell, this one, it's just called Moments of Truth here. Yeah, Moments of Truth, colour 9085. This does not have a picture of how it will knit up, which is kind of pretty exciting, and I really, really like the colours. So I'm really excited to these will probably be 2 at a time socks. When I have yarn like this, I tend to make 2 at a time socks, either for myself or for gifts. We shall see. I do feel like I'm going on. Apparently it's not even been half an hour yet, so I'm not going on too much. So the final acquisition that I wanted to show you is not something that I bought. It was a gift that I received for my birthday yesterday. So my very lovely friend Philippa, who I have mentioned a couple of times before on this podcast, she does not knit, but she sews and does all kinds of other lovely crafty things. She surprised me with a gift for my birthday, and that was this lovely book called Knitting from the North by Hilary Grant. So this is a book which I'm fairly sure I had at least seen before, but I'd never looked through it. And I didn't know about Hilary Grant, but she apparently lives in Orkney in Scotland. And it's a really, really beautiful book, of course, with beautiful, beautiful pictures. And it has apparently 30 patterns in it. I will say that a couple of them are more sort of, you might have 2 patterns which are a similar item, just with a slight variation in the stitch pattern design that's involved. They all appear to be knit out of Jamieson and Smith's Spindrift yarn, so it's all a fingering weight Shetland wool, which to be honest, I've never tried, but I would be happy to try. So if I find something which I really think I'd like to try, and actually there's one pattern here that I think I would like exactly that hat in exactly those colours, I may purchase in the future the correct wool that I would need to make that. Otherwise, I think that many of these patterns could be made with alternative yarns. Some of them, a lot of them involve colour work, simple colour work, but in those cases, obviously, yarns like those which Jamieson's and Smith sell, or other similar, not very soft or superwash yarns, are preferred. But I did want to, excuse my phone there, I normally silence it, but of course I forgot. I did want to show a couple which really, really caught my eye. There's also just some beautiful photography. So beautiful. I think the photographs were probably made, gosh, look at that woman's hair, isn't she beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? That headband. And this one, look at the back cover. Holding it wonky. Okay, so one is this arrow circle scarf. So this is it's a double wrap cowl, but it's also knit in the round in the first place. So it's already, a tube of knitting. So it's double thickness fabric, which is stranded colour work, which is already double thickness. So this means just this fabric in the first place, once you've finished knitting your tube before you before you graft the ends together, that is already like a quadruple layer of fabric, and then you double that over. So this is a very, very warm cowl, and I just think it's really, really stunning. A beautiful use of design there. So I kind of really want to show this, but it's got the pattern there as well. If I just show it like that. Look at that. Beautiful. And the one that I want, that one, even in those colours, is absolutely beautiful, just in black and white, it's a classic. But the one which I want exactly as it is this. It's called the Barley Hat, which is funny because I've made a Barley hat, but Barley by Tin Can Knits, which is their very famous free hat pattern. It's this hat here. I just think it's beautiful. It's very simple. There's nothing particularly fancy about it, but that use of colour and that simple design and the crown decreases, and of course the little pom-pom on top. Perhaps again it's modelled by my favourite model with this beautiful shock of red hair, which I love. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. So this is, as I said, this takes 3 balls of Jamieson Shetland Spindrift. So I would be very, very tempted to order the stuff for that. So I'm probably going to try and, put it off a little bit for now. Oh, here's another lovely one. Very cute hat, that one. Icelandic hat. So it's just full of beautiful, beautiful designs and, use of simple colours, as often colour work, actually they don't, you just let solid colours shine for themselves. And there are two sweater patterns here as well, which are just simple in terms of shaping by the looks of it. They're sort of probably don't have any waist shaping or what have you, and simple construction jumpers, which again just allow some beautiful, simple colour work designs to shine there. So I just think it's really, really beautiful. And I hadn't noticed that one's got these lovely ribbed sleeves as well, which actually is a really nice detail. So this is definitely a very lovely book. So I've already flucked. Dear. I've already flicked through this once, and this is probably only my third time looking at some of these designs, and they're actually grasping me even more on my second look through. So that is Knitting from the North by Hilary Grant. So I don't know if this is only available as a proper book. I don't know if any of these patterns are available on Ravelry. I didn't think to check that out first, I'm afraid. But it's a beautiful book, and it is published by Kyle Books. Okay, so that is everything that I wanted to show you in terms of knitting and knitting related content. I did have a little bit of sew-along is what I was trying to say, with my mother. So my mother is a much more talented sewist than I am. So she doesn't knit. I mean, she knows how to knit, but I've never really seen her knit. But she sews and she makes patchwork things, not huge, large quilts, but a lot of cushions and smaller quilts and baby quilts. She's been making quite a few recently with a lot of arrivals that have been coming in our family and extended family. So she actually brings a small sewing machine with her on holiday when she goes on holiday. So that maybe a couple of days that she'll be doing more touristy activities, and other times she'll just stay back at the apartment or the hotel and sew, which is very nice. And my machine, which I've been using ever since I came out here to Zurich, is actually a small sewing machine, travel sewing machine, which she also had purchased much longer ago. It was from the 70s. She didn't purchase it in the 70s, but that's when it was originally made, and she'd already purchased it secondhand, and she'd given it to me when I moved here to Switzerland. And it did work. I mean, in many respects, it's a wonderful and amazing machine for such a small machine, which it was about this size. It came with loads of accessories and could do quite a number of stitches, even some stitches that other fancier looking machines can't do. But I did struggle with it, and one of the biggest problems was that it did not have a very good speed control. So it had one of those, what do you call them? Like a foot presser? I don't know the technical name for it. The thing which you press with your foot to make the machine work, dear oh dear, that did not allow you to control the stitches at the speed of the needle very well at all. So it could go really slow, I mean like painstakingly slow perhaps, and then suddenly rush off, or it could go at a decent speed. But that exact sort of in-between regime, which is just what you need when you're sewing with fabrics you've never sewn before, or you're pretty new to sewing, as I really am. I mean, I could do very basic things with it, and I'm trying to do something a bit more precise. It was really a struggle. I did manage to make a few project bags and things, and I had shown you that before on this podcast. And I don't have great aspirations to become a sewist, and I don't think that that's anything that's going to take up any amount of my time in the future. It's not going to start taking up a significant amount of my sort of crafting hobby time anytime in the near future, because I don't have space to keep a machine out. So every time I have to put everything away, and that's not very conducive to maybe, sewing garments and the like. I have small children, cutting and leaving stuff around. Anyway, you could still sew with having small children, plenty of people do, but you kind of need a craft corner or craft area, and I don't have any of that here. So, and now I'm touching the crinkly yarn again. Ugh, dear oh dear. Sorry. But Mum was here with her other machine, which is a Toyota, again a travel machine, and she said that she would leave it with me. So I'm going to try and purchase myself a proper machine, not a travel machine, some point in the near future. But in the meantime, we sort of swapped travel machines. She took away the older one and she left me this other one. And it is definitely a lot easier, and especially from the point of view that you can actually control the speed of the needle. So all of that to say, I finally made the dress which I had planned to make my daughter. I had shown you I can't remember which episode 2 or 3, that I had bought this lovely jersey fabric with these flamingos on for my daughter from a local fabric store here, and I was planning to make, hopefully I had enough, and literally I just had enough, to make her a full circle dress, or she calls it a spinny dress. So I've just put this on a little thing. So here is the dress. It works as a dress. It fits her really well. It's a nice length, and it spins beautifully. It is a proper full circle dress, so there is no seaming. There's no seam, within the circle of the dress. I didn't make it from panel pieces. I cut out the full circle from the dress, and then I cut out 2 body pieces. So it's just been seamed at the shoulders here, at the sides here, and then obviously attaching the bodice to the skirt. And there's a little bit of intentional sort of pulling in there, that the top of the skirt was slightly smaller than the bottom of the bodice. And she's absolutely over the moon with it. I was really hard on myself, so sewing the seams was not too much of a struggle. I used a stretch stitch so that hopefully none of these seams will pop at any point. I didn't just use a simple straight stitch. And then I had heard from a friend of mine that when you're making the hems, so I don't have an overcaster, which would be an overlocker, which would be nice, of course, to do more professional hems for this type of fabric. So I was just folding over quarter inch and sewing. And she had said that when she'd used a straight stitch, that which also, as far as I remember, is not recommended with jersey because you might pop your stitches, that they, I should probably show this from this way around, that the hems would flip, and then you would start seeing the inside of the fabric. I think in her case, she had gone around twice, so done 2 rows of straight stitches. And for me, who does not have the best control still of, the fabric going underneath the foot and what have you, I was really apprehensive about that. I did try a little bit on a test bit of fabric, and I was not getting, nice straight, nice parallel lines when I was trying to do it, and I don't have a double needle. So I thought, and I'd seen on, I think, a YouTube video, people had done the hems using a zigzag stitch, which allows a stretch, more of a stretch to the fabric. And I just feel, for me, it's a bit wobbly. Like, it makes the fabric, you see there, it kind of tends to not want to just lie nice and flat, but it tends to make the fabric pull in. And perhaps that's just also me not being particularly used to sewing in general, but especially the first time I ever sewed with jersey fabric, so fabric with considerable stretch in it. So probably, the foot and the dog feet were pulling on the fabrics differently and sort of making a slight effect. Anyway, and I was more generous on the hem all around the circle I turned it up a little bit more to try and make my sewing easier because it's quite a big circumference to sew around. But again, there's a bit of a wibble there, like it pulls the fabric in there, which I wasn't totally happy with. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't work as a dress. And it fits, so thank you very much to my friend Philippa again for lending me the pattern pieces that she had used and she had drafted herself to make similar dresses for her daughters. So hopefully in the future I might make another one of those, although I don't feel like that's happening immediately anytime soon. I feel like I need to build up a bit more experience of sewing in general before sewing too much with jersey fabric. Maybe that's just me. Anyway, and I decided also to do a little bit more bag sewing. So out of a tea towel, I made another little, like a 2-skein project bag. Just a simple one with a sort of teal blue zipper and a nice bright pink lining inside. This is done with proper quilting interfacing, so it really stands up all by itself. It's got nothing in it. But that was nice, and it was, I did a little bit better at my points, boxing the corners. Obviously, lining this up, it didn't even occur to me to try and do it this time. So the lining up happens to not be too bad for the pattern matching, all the way around. This isn't great. But I honestly wasn't even trying. I was trying to get these seam points to match, and I did that pretty well when I boxed my corners. So I was happy with that. And I made my first ever drawstring project bag. So I learned how to make this project bag by following the tutorial by Kay Jones. Well, Dan, I always say that they're Kay's tutorials. This is of the Bakery Bears. So obviously, Dan is is filming all the tutorials. So I followed her zipper bag tutorial to make this. Those are available to patrons. So they have a Patreon page, and they make tutorials which are available to people who support them via Patreon. And now she recently did a series to make a drawstring bag. So this is my first ever drawstring bag. Now in this one I haven't used any interfacing, which means it's very floppy, but I intended that to be the case because it's just a drawstring bag that one can, you know, plop in anywhere. And this fabric is a pair of pajamas, old pajamas that I had, which I liked. I love the fabric, and I just, the way the pajamas were cut, I just never ended up really using them. So I thought, well, it's beautiful fabric. So I took the fabric from the pajamas, from the back. I had enough to make these 2 pieces. And for the lining, I had a bag, just like a little simple tote bag, which I think I got for free from somewhere, that I wasn't, you know, attached to or anything. So I took that, cut some fabric from that for the lining, which I thought went nicely. And the bag actually had straps with this fabric. So this bag here, down here, was this fabric and this fabric. So I cut that to make the opening for the drawstring. I used a sort of teal-ish thread to do all my sewing and my top stitching without even knowing. And then I opened my bag of ribbons thinking, hopefully I have a ribbon there somewhere that I can use for the drawstring, otherwise I'll have to go buy some cord or what have you. And there was this beautiful sort of aqua, really, really beautiful. So aqua goes beautifully with this coral pink. So it seems just perfect, and it all just sort of fell together from bits and bobs that I had lying around. So I'm really, really thrilled and happy about that. Making the drawstring bag, I mean, to be honest, I don't think it has any fewer processes than making the zipper bag, but I do, of course, putting in the zipper is a little bit tricky, and also because whenever I made these bags, I've used this quite thick interfacing, they're a little bit tricky. So I need to try and source some thinner interfacing if I want to make a few bags, perhaps for gifts or what have you in the future. But I definitely enjoyed the process of making the drawstring bag a lot, and I think also not having to sew over a zip when making the seams also made things a little less scary for me. But certainly it was helped a lot by having my mother's machine now. So that is everything that I have to share with you this week. I hope to be back again fairly promptly within a week or 2 to share more progress with you, and perhaps some other upcoming design releases and the like. So thank you very much for coming and joining me again today, and I will of course now upload this as quickly as I can to YouTube and perhaps get some show notes together so that if you do have any if you do want to read details about what I've been talking about, you can check that up over there. But also, if you ever have any questions about anything that I have spoken about, do feel free, to contact me, stick a comment down below on YouTube. And if you also have any suggestions or things that you wanted to hear more about that I mentioned, or something I haven't mentioned that you'd like to know about, then again, just let me know. Okay, I will say goodbye now.